The research station floated silently on the edge of human-explored space. Station Veronine was one of the farthest outposts humanity had built. Its metal hull reflected faint light from a distant star, and the hum of its life systems was the only sound in the cold, empty void. For months, the station had been quiet. Too quiet, according to Evan Carter, one of the station's engineers. He liked quiet, yes, but too much quiet often meant something was wrong. Evan leaned over a console, his fingers moving quickly as he ran diagnostics on the main communication array. He had a calm, careful way of working. Many people on the station liked him for it. Suddenly, a red warning light blinked on the screen. He frowned. "Life pod approaching," said Lena Morov, the station's communications officer. Her voice was steady, but held a note of surprise. "Not on our schedule." "Coordinates match an emergency beacon." Evan straightened and checked the readings. The pod was small, battered, and moving slowly. "It's drifting," he said. "We need to bring it in carefully." A few minutes later, the pod's hatch opened, and the crew rushed to help whoever was inside. Inside, curled on the floor, was a young girl. Her skin had a faint glow in the dim light of the pod, and her hair shimmered silver in a way none of them had ever seen. Her eyes were large and dark, almost too expressive. She wore a simple jumpsuit marked with symbols no one recognized. Evan's first thought was, "She's alien." His mind raced with questions. Was she alone? Was she dangerous? Or was she just scared? The girl lifted her head slowly and looked at them. Her eyes flicked around the room quickly, observing everything, each person, every tool. The walls of the station before finally resting on Evan. She said something in a soft, strange language. Then she switched to basic galactic common. "My name is Lyra," she said. Her voice was calm but quiet, almost like she was afraid to speak too loudly. "Please, help me." The crew exchanged nervous glances. No one had expected this. Rescue missions were routine, but no one had ever met an alien so close. Evan stepped forward. "You're safe here. We'll help you. But we need to know what happened." Lyra shook her head quickly. I cannot say." Her voice wavered. "It is dangerous if I speak." Evan noticed something about her posture. She was tense, holding herself as though the slightest wrong move could bring disaster. But she didn't seem aggressive. Not at all. "Then we'll start with small steps," Evan said gently. "You eat, you rest. When you feel safe, you can tell us more." Lyra hesitated. Her gaze flickered to the floor, then back to Evan. Finally, she nodded. It was a small movement, but it carried the weight of relief. Over the next few hours, Lyra became familiar with the station. She moved carefully, touching nothing she wasn't invited to touch. Yet, despite her politeness, Evan could sense she was hiding something. Something important. She watched the crew as if she were studying them, learning their habits quickly. If anyone moved too quickly, she flinched. When someone spoke about their home planet, her eyes darkened for a moment, and she looked away. She laughed sometimes, but the sound was quiet and fleeting, as if she were afraid she might laugh too loudly. Evan noticed the small things, and he began keeping a mental record. "She is hiding something," he whispered to himself during a quiet moment. "I need to find out what," but it was not easy. Lyra was careful. Every time he asked her a question about herself or where she came from, she would smile politely and say, "I do not remember. Please forgive me." By the next day, strange things began to happen on the station. Lights flickered in empty corridors. Sensors would suddenly go offline for seconds. Small tools would disappear from benches, only to reappear hours later in different places. At first, the crew thought it was a system glitch, but the pattern was too precise. Evan studied the logs and noticed. Every anomaly occurred when Lyra moved through that part of the station. He didn't jump to conclusions. She could be innocent. But the connection was too strong to ignore. He decided to observe her quietly, without alarming her. He watched her as she worked in the lab, helping Lena organize data. She seemed helpful, almost eager to assist. But her eyes constantly scanned the surroundings. Whenever someone mentioned her homeworld, she flinched. Evan realized she was nervous not because she feared them, but because she feared something else. Something out there in space. Something that might be looking for her. A week passed, and Evan noticed more unusual things. Lyra seemed to know about advanced technologies she had no right to know. She could manipulate the station's computers in ways that even the crew didn't understand. Small lights on devices blinked in patterns when she touched them, and sometimes a display would turn on as if responding to her presence alone. One evening, Evan found her in a sealed section of the station. Working with a console that required special access, he cleared his throat and she froze, her fingers hovering over the panel. "I was just checking something," she said, her voice small and tense. "You don't need to lie," Evan replied calmly. "I just want to know what's going on." "We can't help you if you hide things from us." Lyra looked down, her shoulders shaking slightly. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she whispered, almost to herself, "I cannot." Evan nodded slowly. He could see she wanted to trust him but was too afraid. He realized that fear was a powerful thing, and it had a hold on her. He decided he would be patient. Later that night, Evan returned to his quarters. The station's viewports showed the vast emptiness of space. Stars stretched in every direction, cold and distant. He sat at his desk, thinking about Lyra. She is smart. She is capable. But she is terrified. He remembered the way she flinched at simple questions. He realized that her fear was not just for herself, it might affect everyone on the station. Evan understood that the key to helping her was not forcing her to speak, but showing her that humans could be trusted. Humans could act as allies. Even in the far reaches of space, far from Earth, humanity's reputation for stubborn courage and clever solutions might be the only thing that could save her. The next morning, a strange signal appeared on the station's scanners. It was weak but unmistakable. Something or someone was nearby, cloaked just beyond sensor range. Lyra's reaction was immediate. Her eyes widened and her hands trembled slightly. Evan noticed, and he moved beside her. "It's okay," he said softly. "Whatever is out there, we'll handle it. You're safe here." She looked at him, her large eyes filled with fear and uncertainty. They are looking for me," she said, barely audible. Evan felt a chill. He didn't know who they were, but he understood this. Lyra was not just a lost traveler. She was running from something powerful, something dangerous. From that moment on, Evan made a decision. He would watch her closely, protect her, and gain her trust. He would find out the truth not by forcing it, but by showing her that humans could be allies in ways no one else in the galaxy could be. Days turned into a week, and Lyra slowly began to relax around the crew. She laughed quietly with Lena while organizing data, and she sometimes helped Evan with repairs. But Evan never let his guard down. He watched her carefully, noting every twitch, every hesitation, every glance toward the stars. Something about her was extraordinary. Not just her abilities, but the way she studied the humans around her, trying to understand them, to trust them. Evan realized that this girl, alien though she was, might teach them something too. About courage. About survival. About the stubborn, unyielding strength that made humanity what it was. And somewhere deep in his mind, Yvonne knew the truth would come. Sooner or later, the alien girl would have to reveal what she was hiding. And when she did, everything about Station Vera 9 would change. Days passed on Station Vera 9. The quiet hum of life systems filled the corridors, as if nothing unusual had ever happened. But Evan Carter could feel tension in the air. Something was changing. It was subtle at first, small flickers on the monitor, tiny shifts in Lyra's behavior. But humans were good at noticing patterns. Evan had noticed Lyra moved carefully through the station. It's always polite, always observing, but there was something in her eyes that betrayed her. Fear? Maybe. But also something else. Something that hinted at knowledge she shouldn't have. The first unusual sign came during a routine maintenance check. Evan was working on a communications relay when he heard soft humming behind him. He turned and saw Lyra hovering near the console, her fingers brushing over the buttons as if she could feel the machine. "You don't need to do that," Evan said calmly. "The systems are fine." Lyra looked up, startled. Her large eyes flicked between him and the console. I I only wanted to help, she said quietly. Her voice was polite, but her hesitation was clear. Evan frowned slightly. You have been here for a week, and I still don't understand why you are afraid to tell us anything about yourself. Lyra's gaze dropped. Some things cannot be told, she whispered. It is not safe. Evan studied her carefully. She did not sound like she was hiding something to protect herself. She sounded like she was hiding something to protect others, or perhaps to protect the entire station. Later that day, crew gathered in the observation deck. Lyra sat quietly at the edge of the room, watching them. The station's sensors had picked up a faint, unusual signal in the nearby sector. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to alert the crew. What could it be? Lena asked, frowning at the readings. Evan shook his head. Unknown. Could be a rogue ship, a probe, or some kind of interference. Nothing that should concern us too much. But we will keep monitoring it. Lyra stiffened. Her hands gripped the edge of her chair. She did not speak, but her body told Evan everything he needed to know. She recognized that signal. After the meeting, Evan followed her to the lab. Lyra, he said softly, you saw it, didn't you? She flinched. I am not sure, she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. Evan crouched to her level. You don't need to lie to me. If you know something, it is better to tell us. The station can protect Ubud only if we understand what is happening. She shook her head and looked away. I cannot. Please, trust me. Evan sighed. Trust was a difficult thing in the far reaches of space, but he understood. She was frightened. Yet he knew one thing. Sooner or later, the truth would come out. And when it did, the consequences could be enormous. That night, Evan returned to the lab. He worked late, quietly monitoring the station's sensors. The strange signal returned, brief and weak, almost like a heartbeat. But Evan noticed something unusual. Every time the signal appeared, a section of the station's data logs went missing. Files vanished without explanation, only to reappear hours later, slightly altered. Evan frowned. Could this be Lyra? He wondered. He did not want to believe she was causing trouble intentionally. She had been careful, helpful, polite, but the pattern was too strong to ignore. He decided to watch her closely the next day. Not to accuse her, but to understand. The following morning, Lyra helped Evan with repairs on the main console. As they worked side by side, Evan watched her fingers. They moved lightly, almost dancing over the controls. When she touched the panel, tiny lights flickered in patterns he had never seen before. Do you know what you were doing? Evan asked cautiously. Lyra hesitated. I can feel it, she said softly. The machine responds. If I touch it the right way... Evan's brow furrowed. Machines did not respond to touch like that. He realized she had abilities far beyond normal understanding. Yet she did not seem to use them to harm anyone. I need to know, Evan said, lowering his voice. You are hiding something, Lyra. It may be dangerous for you and for us. Please, just tell me what you can. She looked at him, eyes wide and troubled. I cannot, she whispered again. Evan nodded slowly. Patience was the only choice. He would not push her to heart not yet, but he would be ready when she decided to trust him. The next few days brought more strange events. Small systems failed, briefly lights flickered, doors locked unexpectedly, data streams glitched. Evan studied the logs carefully. Every anomaly occurred near Lyra's location. He did not want to believe she was causing these problems intentionally. She had shown nothing but kindness and cooperation, but the evidence was clear. Someone or something was affecting the station. When she was present, Evan began to suspect that the problems were not entirely under her control. Perhaps she was being tracked, or someone was trying to reach her through the station's systems. The thought made his stomach tighten. One afternoon, while monitoring the observation deck, Evan noticed her staring out at the stars, her expression tense. What are you looking at? He asked gently. She flinched. They are there, she said quietly. Watching. Evan's pulse quickened. Who is watching? She shook her head. I do not know. But they are dangerous. If they find me, Everyone here will be in danger. Evan took a deep breath. He realized that Lyra was not hiding for her own safety alone. She was hiding because the truth could threaten everyone on the station, and possibly beyond, that night. Evan sat in his quarters thinking. Lyra's abilities, her fear, and the strange signals all pointed to something much larger than the station. Whoever or whatever she was running from was powerful, patient, and relentless. He knew humans were known for clever solutions. Humans were known for courage. And he realized that he would have to use both to protect Lyra on the station. Evan returned to the lab, quietly watching Lyra as she worked. She noticed him, but did not speak. Instead, she focused on the console, fingers dancing lightly over the buttons. Lights flickered in patterns responding to her touch. "You are strong," Evan said softly. "But you don't have to face this alone. We can help you if you let us." Lyra looked at him, eyes filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to tell him the truth. But the words would not come yet, Evan understood. Patience was the key. He would wait. And when the time came, he would be ready to face whatever secret she carried. In the following days, the station's tension grew. Small anomalies continued, doors locking, sensors flickering, but the crew remained unaware of the real danger. Only Evan and Lyra knew that something was out there. Watching, Lyra began helping more openly, though her hands still trembled at times. She organized data, assisted with repairs, and even shared small observations about the station's systems. Yet she always kept a part of herself hidden. As if the truth were a fragile object she could not risk revealing, Evan watched her closely, learning her patterns. He noticed that when she believed no one was looking, she sometimes whispered to herself in her own language. The words were soft and strange, but they carried meaning. He could see the fear in her eyes, the worry in her hands, and the careful way she measured each movement. He realized that Lyra was not ordinary. She was not just an alien visitor. She was someone with knowledge and abilities far beyond what humans had ever seen. But more importantly, she was someone who had suffered and feared for her life. Evan felt a quiet determination. Humanity was strong because it could adapt, because it could trust, and because it could stand up for others. He would be that for Lyra. He would be her anchor in a galaxy filled with unknown dangers, and he knew that sooner or later, the truth would come. Lyra would reveal what she had hidden, willingly or not, and when she did, Station Varan and everyone on it would face a challenge unlike anything they had ever known. The quiet of Station Varan was no longer comforting. Every crew member went about their work carefully, but Evan Carter felt a constant tension in the air. He had been watching Lyra for weeks, and he knew something vital was being hidden. The strange signals in nearby space were becoming stronger. The small failures in the station's systems were becoming more frequent. Evan paced the observation deck, looking out at the distant stars. The unknown sector beyond the station flickered with sensor blips that vanished almost as quickly as they appeared. Whatever or whoever was out there, they were patient, precise, and waiting. He turned to Lyra, who sat quietly at a console, her fingers hovering above the keys. She was pale and tense, her silver hair falling over one shoulder. Her large eyes flickered as she studied the monitors. "Lyra," Evan said gently, walking toward her. "We need to talk." She looked up, startled, then quickly looked away. I have nothing to say," she whispered. Evan crouched slightly to meet her gaze. "I know you're hiding something, but you don't have to hide from me anymore. Whatever it is, I can help. But I need you to tell me the truth." Lyra shook her head, fear flickering in her eyes. I cannot. Please do not ask me." Evan sighed, but did not give up. He had learned patience, but patience had limits. "Lyra," he said softly but firmly, "if you do not tell me, I cannot protect you or anyone else here. I can't stop the danger if I don't know what it is. Please, you have to trust me." For a long moment, Lyra said nothing. Her hands trembled slightly over the console. She looked at Evan, then at the monitors, then back at him. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. "They will come if they find me. And if they find me, everyone here will be in danger." Evan's heart tightened. "Who will come?" he asked gently. "They, The Veiled Core, she whispered. A group. They experiment on people. People like me. I was one of their test subjects. I escaped. Evan blinked, absorbing the words. Test subjects? Experiments? Lyra, what do you mean? She swallowed hard. I have abilities they wanted to control. They wanted to use me too. To manipulate communications, to control machines, to watch worlds from afar. I escaped, fled. But they are looking for me. They are very powerful. Evan's mind raced. The strange signals, the brief failures in the systems, the stealth blip they had seen earlier, it all made sense now. So the anomalies on the station, they are connected to you? He asked carefully. Lyra nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Yes, I tried to stop it, but I cannot stop all of it. They have a tracker, hidden inside me. I can disrupt it sometimes, but not always. I did not mean to bring danger here. Evan reached out, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. It's not your fault, he said. But now that I know, we can plan. We can protect the station and you. Lyra's gaze met his, filled with a mixture of fear, relief, and guilt. I am sorry, she whispered. You don't need to be sorry, Evan replied. You survived. That is what matters. And now we face this together. The rest of the crew gathered once Evan had explained the situation carefully. There was no panic, only focused determination. Lena Morove, communications officer, and the others quickly began analyzing the station's systems, looking for ways to block or confuse the tracker. Evan and Lyra worked together at the lab, her abilities guiding them. She touched panels, and the lights flickered in response, bending circuits and rerouting signals in ways humans could not fully understand. Evan watched in awe, realizing that her knowledge was not just advanced, it was beyond anything humanity had ever seen. Your abilities. They can help us, Evan said, careful not to startle her. Lyra hesitated. I do not want to hurt anyone. I only want to hide. You're not hurting anyone, Evan reassured her. You're helping. Together, we'll make it safe. As they worked, the sensors picked up another blip, this one much stronger. It was no longer a brief signal. Something was coming closer, faster. They're here, Lyra said, her voice trembling. The Veiled Core ship found me. Evan's jaw tightened. We have time, but not much. We need to act fast. The crew quickly formed a plan. They would use Lyra's abilities to disrupt the ship's tracking systems while creating a decoy signal. It was a risky plan, but it was the only option. Lyra looked at Evan, eyes wide. I cannot do this alone. I am not strong enough. You're not alone, Evan said firmly. We're doing this together. We provide the ability. We provide the support. We will protect each other. Her gaze softened, and she nodded. Okay, I trust you. The next hours were tense. Lyra stood at the central console, hands hovering above the panels. Lights flickered, patterns shifted, and circuits bent at her will. Evan and the others monitored the systems, redirecting power and creating false signals. The stealth blip on the sensors moved closer. The crew could see the faint outline of the ship, just beyond the station's range. Lyra's hands shook as she focused, channeling her abilities. Almost there, Evan said, voice calm but urgent. Keep steady. We're right here with you. A sudden alarm blared. The tracker in Lyra's system reacted violently. Data streams burst into chaos. Alarms flashed and the station shook slightly. Lyra gasped, her fingers trembling. Don't stop, Evan said firmly. You can do this. We're helping you. Slowly, carefully, Lyra stabilized her touch. The tracker's signals weakened. The lights on the panels returned to normal. The decoy signal activated, sending a false trail out into space. The Veiled Core ship followed the decoy, disappearing into the darkness. The crew let out a collective sigh of relief. Lyra collapsed into a chair, exhausted but alive. Evan knelt beside her. You did it, he said softly. You were brave. You saved the station. Lyra's eyes glistened with tears. I was so afraid, she whispered. I know, Evan replied. But fear does not make you weak. Courage is not the absence of fear, is acting despite it. You acted. You survived. You saved us all. The crew spent the next hours restoring the station's systems. Anomalies slowly disappeared, and the lights returned to their normal glow. Lyra sat quietly, watching, still trembling from the effort. Evan observed her. He knew this was only the beginning. The Veiled Core was still out there, and they would not give up easily. But for the first time, Lyra trusted him enough to reveal her secret. This station, humans. They are not like others I have met, Lyra said softly, her voice filled with wonder. Evan smiled. Humans can be stubborn, clever, and sometimes impossible. But we are also loyal. We do not give up on those who need us. Lyra looked at him, eyes shining. I think I understand now. Maybe. I am not alone. You're never alone, Evan said. Not while we are here. For the first time since she arrived, Lyra allowed herself to relax. She leaned back in the chair, exhausted but relieved. The danger was not gone, but she had allies now. Humans who would stand by her. Humans who would fight with her, not against her. And Evan realized something too. Lyra's abilities, her courage, and her trust had reminded him why humans were remarkable. Even in the darkest corners of space, even when faced with unknown threats, humanity could stand, strong, and inspire others to do the same. The station was quiet again, but it was a quiet filled with hope. Lyra had revealed the truth, and with that truth, the crew could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Somewhere in the depths of space, the Veiled Core ship drifted, unaware that the humans and the alien girl had already prepared for its return. And somewhere on the station, Lyra began to believe that she might finally have a chance at freedom. Not just from the Veiled Core, but from fear itself. The day after the Veiled Core ship had followed the decoy signal, Station Vera 9 was quiet, again but not peaceful. Evan Carter walked through the corridors, his mind focused. He knew the danger was far from over. The ship had disappeared for now, but the organization behind it was powerful, patient, and ruthless. He found Lyra in the lab, sitting on a stool, her hands folded in her lap. Her silver hair fell over her shoulders, her eyes tired, but alert. She had spent the night trying to stabilize the station's systems and recover lost data. You're pushing yourself too hard, Evan said, concern in his voice. You need rest. Cannot rest, Lyra replied softly. If they come again, I need to be ready. I cannot risk anyone else being hurt. Evan nodded. He understood her fear. You won't have to do it alone. We are here with you. We will face them together. Her eyes met his, filled with both hope and doubt. I want to believe that, she whispered. You can, Evan said firmly. You will. Over the next few hours, the human crew worked with Lyra to strengthen the station's defenses. Every console was examined, every system tested. They reinforced the shields, added emergency protocols, and prepared for the possibility of the Veiled Core's return. Evan was amazed at how quickly the crew adapted to Lyra's abilities. Her powers were strange and unpredictable. But humans had a unique way of solving problems. They could combine logic, creativity, and improvisation. Lyra watched in awe as the engineers and technicians modified the station's systems to complement her abilities. You do not just rely on your power, she said quietly to Evan. You use your minds, your tools, your teamwork. It is amazing. Evan smiled. Humans are stubborn that way. We don't give up easily. We find solutions even when things seem impossible. Her eyes sparkled with something Evan had not seen before immersion. Curiosity and perhaps a hint of hope. The next challenge came faster than anyone expected. Sensors picked up movement in the sector. The faint shimmer of a cloaked ship appeared briefly, then disappeared. Lyra's eyes widened. They are here, she whispered. The Veiled Core. They found the trail again. Evan gathered the crew in the control room. We knew this day could come, he said. We are ready. We have a plan, but we will need Lyra's help. And she will need all of us. The plan was simple, but risky. Lyra would amplify her powers to create a false image of the station and confuse the Veiled Core ship. Meanwhile, the humans would reroute systems, reinforce shields, and prepare countermeasures. The goal was to buy enough time for the enemy to leave without harming anyone. Lyra hesitated. I am not sure I can do it alone. My powers, they are strong, but not enough for this. You are not alone, Evan said firmly. We will work with you. We will combine your abilities with our technology. Together, we can succeed. She nodded slowly, a mixture of fear and determination on her face. The crew moved quickly. Shields were raised to maximum strength, power grids rerouted, and communication lines scrambled to prevent detection. Lyra stood at the central console, her fingers hovering above the controls. As she focused, the lights on the panels flickered and shifted in patterns no one had ever seen. Stay steady, Evan said beside her. We've got your back. Her hands trembled, but she nodded. She closed her eyes, centering herself. Slowly, the station's systems began to respond to her touch. Lights flickered, doors locked and unlocked at her command, and data streams bent and twisted. Confusing the sensors outside, the veiled core ship appeared again on the scanners, closer this time. Its movements were precise, deliberate, and deadly. Lyra's powers strained under the effort, and her fingers shook as she tried to maintain control. Almost there, Evan said softly. Keep going. We're helping you. The ship sent a signal, a powerful tracking pulse aimed directly at Lyra. The station trembled under the energy. Alarms blared. She gasped, fear flashing in her eyes. You can do this, Evan said firmly. Use the rhythm. Let us guide you. He pointed to consoles where the crew had set up feedback loops. By redirecting power and synchronizing with her movements, he could amplify her abilities without overloading her. Step by step, Lyra regained control. The light stabilized, and the tracker signal began to weaken. The decoy system activated, sending a false trail into deep space. The veiled core ship, misled by the signals, changed course and disappeared into the darkness. The control room erupted in quiet cheers. Lyra slumped into a chair, exhausted but relieved. Evan knelt beside her. You did it, he said softly. You were brave. You saved the station. I was afraid, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. So afraid. Fear is natural, Evan replied. Courage is acting despite fear. And you acted. You were strong, and you were brave. That is what matters. After the immediate danger had passed, the crew worked through the night restoring systems, checking for damage and repairing any anomalies. Lyra sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, watching humans work together. She realized something she had never understood before. Humans did not rely on one power, one skill, or one ability. They relied on each other. They are different, she whispered to Evan. How so? He asked, curious. They combine their minds. They do not just rely on strength or powers. They create solutions, and they do not give up. I have never seen anything like it. Evan smiled. That is humanity. We have limits, but we also have determination. And sometimes, that determination is stronger than any single power. For the first time, Lyra felt a small spark of hope. She was not just a runaway or a test subject. She had allies, friends, even family, among these humans. The next few days were filled with training, repairs, and planning. Lyra worked closely with the crew, learning how to use her powers in combination with human technology. She marveled at the creative solutions humans came up with, simple devices that amplified her abilities, feedback systems that prevented overload, and clever traps that could confuse even the most advanced enemies. She began to understand that she was no longer alone in facing the veiled core. Humans were stubborn, brave, and resourceful. With them, she could survive, and maybe even fight back if the organization returned. Evan noticed a change in her. Where she had once been timid, nervous, and fearful, she now moved with a quiet confidence. She still flinched at certain topics, but her trust in humans and in him was growing. You are learning quickly, Evan said, watching her work on a feedback panel. I want to help, Lyra replied softly. I want to protect this place. And all of you. You already have, Evan said. You've saved us more than once. And now we will face whatever comes next together. As the sun, or rather, the distant star beyond the station, glinted off the hull, Evan looked out the viewport. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown dangers, but for the first time, he felt a small sense of hope. They had survived the first real test. Lyra had revealed part of the truth, and together, humans and alien worked as one. Somewhere. In the darkness beyond the station, the veiled core ship drifted. Unaware that the station's crew had adapted, prepared, and become stronger because of the variabilities they had once feared, and Lyra, for the first time, believed that she could live, not as a tool, but as a free individual. Humans had shown her something she had never known: courage, loyalty, and hope. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll be ready next time," he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes shining. "Yes, next time, we will be ready. Together." The quiet of the station was different now. It was no longer just silence. It was the quiet of preparation, strength, and determination. They had faced fear and survived, and they were ready for whatever challenge the stars might send their way next. The days after the veiled core ship's disappearance were tense, but quiet. Station Veronine had been repaired, systems strengthened, and shields reinforced. Yet Evan Carter knew the peace would not last forever. The veiled core had resources, intelligence, and patience. They would return if they sensed Lyra again. Evan moved through the corridors, checking each station module with his usual calm, careful precision. He found Lyra in the observation deck, sitting alone, her silver hair glowing faintly in the soft light. Her large eyes reflected the distant stars, but there was a quiet determination in them now. "You should rest," Evan said softly. "We've done everything we can for now." Lyra shook her head. I cannot. Not yet. If they come back, I must be ready. I must know I can help protect this station. And everyone here." "You are not alone," Evan said firmly. "We will face them together. And when the time comes, we will act as one." She looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. I want to believe that," she whispered. "You can," Evan said. "We've proven it already." A week later, the faint shimmer of a ship appeared on the sensors. The veiled core had returned, this time faster, larger, and more organized. The crew immediately activated shields and defensive systems. Lyra stepped to the central console, her hands hovering above the panels. The lights flickered as she focused, ready to channel her powers in harmony with the station's technology. "This is it," Evan said quietly. "We face them together. Are you ready?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, I am ready." The ship drew closer, its presence tense and threatening, but the station was prepared. Evan and the crew had combined human ingenuity with Lyra's abilities. Panels that once confused the trackers now projected false images, lights flickered in impossible patterns, and shields shifted in unpredictable ways. Lyra's hands glowed faintly as she directed energy through the systems. The ship fired pulses aimed at the station, but each attack was countered with clever diversions and reinforced shields. The crew worked tirelessly, coordinating with her in perfect synchrony. "This is amazing," Lyra whispered. I have never seen anything like this. Humans, your minds, your teamwork. It is incredible." Evan smiled faintly. "That is humanity. We adapt, we endure, and we never give up." The battle escalated. The veiled core ship fired stronger pulses, attempting to disrupt the station's systems. Lyra strained under the effort, her powers reaching their limits. The station trembled, alarms blared, and lights flickered violently. "You can do this," Evan shouted over the noise. "Trust yourself. Trust us. We are here with you." Lyra took a deep breath, centering herself. Slowly, carefully, she amplified her abilities in harmony with the human-engineered systems. Energy pulsed through the consoles, bending the veiled core's tracking attempts attempts into a maze of false signals. The enemy ship's sensors faltered, unable to discern the station from the decoys. Almost there, Evan called. Keep it steady. Her fingers trembled, sweat forming on her brow. But with Evan's guidance and the crew's support, Lyra maintained control. The ship's pulses grew weaker, erratic, and finally, it retreated into the darkness of space, unable to overcome the combined strength of human determination and her powers. The station fell silent. Only the hum of its systems remained. Lyra slumped into a chair, exhausted but alive. Evan knelt beside her. You did it, he said softly. You were brave. You saved everyone. I was so afraid, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Courage is acting despite fear, Evan said. And you acted. You were strong. You were brave. That is what matters. The crew spent the next hours restoring the station. Panels were repaired, shields recalibrated, and data streams checked for anomalies. Lyra sat quietly, observing the humans at work. For the first time, she realized something profound. Humans did not rely on power alone. They relied on creativity, ingenuity, and collaboration. They are different, she said softly to Evan. How so? He asked. They think together. They plan together. They do not rely on just one skill or one ability. They create solutions. They never give up. I have never seen anything like it. Evan smiled. That is humanity. We have limits, but we also have determination. And sometimes, determination is stronger than any single power. Lyra's eyes glistened with a mix of admiration and hope. For the first time, she felt a sense of belonging. She was not just a runaway, a test subject, or a target. She was part of something greater, a team, a family, a community. In the following days, Lyra began training with the crew. She learned to use her abilities more efficiently, integrating them with human technology. Small devices amplified her energy safely. Feedback systems prevented overload. Clever modifications allowed her to manipulate systems without strain. She marveled at the humans' creativity. A simple panel, a redirected data stream. Feedback loop, these were things she had never seen before, yet they worked perfectly. She realized that humans did not need extraordinary powers to achieve extraordinary results. Their ingenuity, courage, and teamwork were enough. You are learning quickly, Ivan said one morning, watching her work. I want to help, Lyra replied softly. I want to protect this station. And everyone here. You already have, Evan said. You've saved us more than once. And now, we are ready for whatever comes next. Weeks passed, and Lyra's confidence grew. She walked through the station with her head held high, assisting crew members, helping with repairs, even offering suggestions on defensive strategies. She was no longer timid or fearful. She had found trust, friendship, and courage among humans. Evan watched her quietly. He realized something important. It was not just her powers that made her extraordinary. It was her heart, her courage, and her willingness to trust others despite fear. She had learned that she did not have to face the galaxy alone. And that was a lesson humans understood instinctively. One evening, as the station floated silently among the stars, Lyra and Evan stood together at the observation deck. The galaxy stretched out before them, vast and full of unknown dangers. I never thought I would feel safe again, Lyra said softly. But now, I believe I can survive. Not just survive, I can live. You can, Evan replied. And you can thrive. The galaxy is full of challenges, but you are not alone. You have us. And together, we can face anything. She smiled faintly. For the first time, her fear was tempered by hope. The shadows of her past, the experiments, the fear of capture, they still existed, but they no longer controlled her. She had found allies, friends, and a new path forward. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. We will be ready next time, he said quietly. Yes, she replied. Next time, we will be ready, together. The quiet of Station Vera 9 was different now. It was no longer just the hum of systems. It was the quiet of preparation, strength, and determination. Humans in Lyra had faced fear and danger and had survived. They had proven that courage, creativity, and trust were more powerful than fear. Somewhere in the galaxy, the veiled core ship drifted, unaware that its target had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Lyra had revealed her secret, and with humanity by her side, she no longer needed to hide. And as the stars shone beyond the viewport, Lyra realized something extraordinary. Freedom was not just about escaping danger. It was about finding trust, friendship, and courage. It was about standing together, facing the unknown, and never giving up. Evan looked at her, pride in his eyes. "The galaxy is vast," he said, "but with trust, courage, and determination, we can make it a little safer. And we can make it ours." Lyra smiled. Yes, ours. For the first time in her life, she believed that the future was not something to fear. It was something to embrace. And with humanity beside her, she knew she could face whatever lay ahead. The stars stretched endlessly, full of possibilities, and for Lyra, the journey was only beginning.